Hi everyone. Today I want to make a brief video, a tribute to a French actor that I really loved, and that's Jean-Louis Trintignant. He passed away about maybe 10 days ago. I'm filming this in the end of June of 2022. He was an actor who spans the decades from the 1950s to the 2010s, and he's a kind of actor that is easily overlooked because he underplays his roles. He's sort of an interior actor. He kind of inhabits a character. He was quoted as saying that he does a lot of study on his characters before the filming, but you wouldn't know that from watching his performances. They're very natural, very unstudied. He doesn't have emotional outbursts that usually win actors big time awards. But he plays sort of normal. He's a normal looking guy, everyday guy, but often with hidden depths. But he definitely is the kind of actor who has that kind of star charisma in which the audience identifies themselves with this character. And no more so than in the first of 5 movies. This is Spotlight on a Murderer. I went through my collection and I have 5, so I'm just going to talk briefly about the 5 I had because I rewatched them in the last few days and all of them are terrific. Spotlight on a Murderer is from 1961, directed by Georges Franju. It's a Agatha Christie type story. It's definitely a kind of homage to both Christie and particularly to And Then There Were None. And because the film opens with an old man played by Pierre Brasseur who is in a big castle. This is modern times. He's in a castle. He is evidently in distress. He's dying. He goes into a hidden room in the castle. No one, it's a rumor that there's a hidden room, but nobody knows where it is. And he goes into that room dressed in robes of some sort of religious sect with his wind-up doll. And he sits down. He closes the door of the room. So now the heirs gather to get their inheritance, but they're told because they cannot find the body, the doctor had pronounced them near death, but there's no body. And where's the hidden room? They have to go on a search because they have to wait 5 years before they can get their inheritance. And Then There Were None, the Agatha Christie plot line comes in as the heirs keep getting knocked off one by one. And Trintignant is one of the heirs, but he's sort of the normal one. He is not. The others, they're kind of shady characters. They're adultery and kind of insanity or dissolute figures. So Trintignant sort of anchors the movie. It's a lot of fun. That doesn't require any kind of great performance, but this is a movie star performance by Jean-Louis Trintignant. And next up is one of his most famous roles from 1962, and this is Il Sorpasso, directed by Dino Risi and co-starring Vittoria Gassman. And this is a story of two men who meet coincidentally, and one is very outgoing, Vittoria Gassman, very outgoing. They meet coincidentally. They're in Rome in August. It's a holiday. The city is empty. Everybody's going to the vacation, and he sort of bullies Jean-Louis Trintignant's character to accompany him, and they have a very strange relationship. Trintignant is meek. He's uncomfortable talking with women. He's shy, just exactly the opposite of Vittoria Gassman, who is just unbearably outgoing and great. He overwhelms everybody, but underneath, maybe he's not so confident as he seems. There's a lot missing in his life. And And then Jean-Louis Trintignant's character sort of, they develop a kind of friendship, even though he's sort of dragged along and he's going along for politeness. It's a great relationship kind of movie. And again, we have a couple of like little humorous side bits in this. One of them is the fact that in the movie, Trintignant doesn't know how to drive a car, and he's like, you know, scared to drive a car. Whereas in real life, he was a race car driver. He actually, I think he was in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He had two uncles who were very famous race car drivers. And then there's another little bit that kind of amused me, where, according to Trintignant's autobiography, because he's meek, he's being chastised. Vittorio Gassman is constantly chastising. You got to get with the women, you know, and assert yourself. But in real life, Trintignant in 1955 had a scandalous affair with Brigitte Bardot while they were filming in God Created Women. And when he's being chastised, the camera looks at the dashboard of this Lancia sports car that they're driving recklessly, Vittorio Gassman driving recklessly, and there is a picture of Brigitte Bardot. Shortly thereafter, after this Brigitte Bardot scandal, Trintignant marries Stefano Dran, who for a few years they were married, and then she married Claude Chabrol and was in like 25 Chabrol movies. And they were Trintignant and Stefano Dran were in La Biche for Chabrol. I think it's the only time that Trintignant was in a Claude Chabrol movie. Now, the next up, we skip about 7 years, that was 62, this is 69. This is My Night at Maud's, and this is by Eric Romer, part of his part of his series of movies in which a man has to choose between two women, and Jean-Louis Trintignant plays a engineer. He's moved back to a city in the mountainous parts of France. It's a Christmas movie, and he meets Francois Fabian, who plays Maud, and there's a lot of dialogue, and it's philosophical. It's about the affinities. Who are we? What kind of person are we attracted to during this night at Maud's? This kind of dialogue, this is where Romer leaves the mainstream audience behind. That can't take all this dialogue, but it's just fascinating, and to hear and Trintignant is so good at inhabiting this character, and so good with the suspense of where this relationship with Maud is going to go, because he has an idea of what his wife is going to be, and this movie has a lot of two long passages in a Catholic church. Christmas time, there's a Christmas Eve mass, but he spots exactly what he sees, what he wants in a movie. He sees it in a fellow parishioner, and so he's caught between this attraction that he has with Maud, but that's not his perfect woman, and the woman that he discovers when he's in mass. And Trintignant is just he's playing Eric Romer here, because Eric Romer was a devout Catholic. He was a very chaste man, despite being surrounded by beautiful women throughout his whole film career. And in the biography I read about Eric Romer, he spots his wife, not in church, but dancing on a dance floor, and immediately knew that this was my wife. The affinities are in play. This is who I'm going to marry, and he indeed does marry her. So I think Trintignant was probably channeling a little bit. He might have been studying Eric Romer, because if you see Eric Romer in interviews, it's very much what Trintignant portrays the character in My Night at Maud's. So this is a film that is in the collection still in the what is it? The Six Moral Tales of Eric Rohmer. It's a Blu-ray. It's also streaming on their channel. El Sorpasso is in the Criterion collection still, and is also streaming on the channel. Spotlight on a Murder is an Arrow Academy Blu-ray, still available, but is only streaming on the Arrow streaming site. So in case anybody wants to see the movie before they purchase it. Next up is probably Jean-Louis Trintignant's most famous performance, and this is in Bernardo Bertolucci's The Conformist. This is from 1970. It's set in 1930s Mussolini, fascism. Trintignant's character is probably the most complex character I've ever seen him play. He is an outsider. He was traumatized as a boy, sexually abused, believes that he's committed murder. So he feels that he's an outsider, and so he wants to conform. So he's going to marry Stefania Sandrelli, who's just an ordinary woman. He's going to conform. He joins the fascist party, taking it one step further, that he volunteers to go to Paris, where anti-fascist Italians, many were living, to spy on a former professor. And then maybe even take a step further, because there's talk of assassinating this professor. How far is this character going to take his need to conform? And this is a film that Conformist does have one of Trintignant's outbursts, emotional outbursts. It comes at the end of the film because he's very wound up. This is a man who is not comfortable in his own skin. But he, at the end of the film, after fascism falls, he has an emotional outburst, and it's so shocking. If you know his acting style, and within the context of the narrative, it's a great and very shocking moment. And The Conformist is not on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is out of print. So is this is a DVD. This is also out of print. The Blu-ray, used Blu-ray, goes for over $100. And this is a gorgeous film. This Bertolucci's ability for historical recreation is at its height. He was only 28 years old when he made this film. He'd already made, I think, 4 or 5 films before this. But this was his real entry into world cinema. And it's got such great contributors. Vittorio Storaro did the cinematography, who later would do Apocalypse Now. Fernando Scarfiati did the set design. It's just, it's fantastic. The music by George Delarue really is perplexing. I had no idea this was not on Blu-ray. It hasn't been available on Blu-ray for years now. So now we're going to jump all the way up to 1994. That was 1970. Now we go to 94, where Trintignant is now 64 years old. And this is Krzysztof Kieslowski's Red, part of his 3 Colors trilogy. This is the last film that Kieslowski made before he passed away. And in this film, Trintignant plays a retired judge. And he, through a series of coincidences, Irene Jacob runs over his dog, but the dog is still alive. She brings him, the address is on the collar. She brings him to go to meet the judge, who is a man who is like on his last legs emotionally and spiritually. Take the dog, I don't care, take the dog. And she discovers that he is eavesdropping on his neighbor's telephone conversations. She's outraged by that, but she finds the man fascinating, this retired judge. And their scenes together between Irene Jacob and Trintignant are they're just fantastic. As she represents to him something about life that's positive and hopeful. So he makes a kind of transformation, and this is just great. Now, the Kieslowski, like Romer, relies very much in his narratives on coincidence, on a series of coincidences, and it almost seems like there's a plan to it all. And the kindness of Irene Jacob sort of permeates what could be seen as the grace of God in the finale of this film, and because his disillusionment through these series of coincidences becomes transformed, but also the failed love affairs of the failed love affair of Irene Jacob and one of the subsidiary characters comes to some sort of resolution. I don't even know what to call it. The final scene of it, if you've ever seen it, you know it's a very strange ending that ties back into White and Blue, the other films in this in Kieslowski's three colors trilogy. So there's so many more Trintignant movies. He was part of the Italian-French co-production era, so he was in a lot of Italian movies, 2 of them are here. And he did not speak Italian, so he's dubbed into Italian. And with the Conformist, there is an English language dubbed to the Conformist. It's absolutely awful, but some of the Italian dubbing, even though the dubbing itself often isn't very good as far as matching the lip sync, they did choose actors' voices to do the voicing that had similar voices. They sound like Trintignant, so not far off. Whereas in the English dub, it's an actor that it's just, I mean, they didn't give any thought to trying to match his voice. A voice that's very familiar to people from his French language movies. So other movies of this time period of the 70s was Z by Costa-Gavras. I do not have that. I haven't seen that in a long time. But that is, he won a lot of awards. Trintignant won some awards for Z. He made films with Robbie Grillet, really avant-garde artistic movies, Marguerite Duras. But there's some of The Outside Man, I think it's called. Kino that might be an English language movie with Anne Margaret and Roy Scheider. I think Kino, that was from around 72, and Kino just announced that, that they'll be releasing that sometime in 2022 or early 2023. Oh my goodness. So there's a lot more to discover, 164 movies. And there's Confidentially Yours, Francois Truffaut's. I think that might have been Francois Truffaut's last film with Fanny Ardant. That's a lot of fun, a movie that's an awful lot of fun. So anyways, if there's any Trintignant movies that you're fond of, please let me know in the comments. Their comments are always welcome. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.